Happy Wednesday, everybody. Hoping that I am live and all things look good. Hope y'all are having a great hump day. It's Christina Springstead, Springstead Solutions, here for my weekly Wednesday live with a little bit of a nugget for you all on some sort of financial tip that's going to help you out. And so this week, we are going to be talking about, last week we talked about cleaning up your customers and doing an audit. And so this week, we're going to be talking about doing a vendor audit. So again, for those of you who are just tuning in, I'm Christina Springstead, owner and founder of Springstead Solutions. We are a profit first certified firm. We provide profit advisory services, and we supplement that with bookkeeping and payroll for clients. So glad to be here. Glad to see you guys tuning in. Again, I am doing these weekly lives on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and have decided to make them short. As you guys know, there's lives to listen to all the time. There's nonstop content to be taking in. And I figured to do a service for everyone, so these can hopefully be useful to everyone. We're just going to keep them short and sweet. So each week I'll be here 10 to 15 minutes or so, unless maybe we get some comments and discussion going. But we can also do that in the comment boxes underneath afterwards. So moving along to keeping this short and sweet, like I promised, is last week, again, we talked about a customer audit for you guys. So tax time is coming up. If you run a business and you're an S Corp or you're a sole prop, not sole prop, but if you're S Corp, like business tax time is coming, March 15th, where you need to get all that in. So you want to be checking and making sure your books are good to go. Your CPA's probably been wondering where your stuff is, and you want to make sure it's pretty clean so that they have very few questions coming in. So customer audit we talked about last week. You can go back and find that video again Wednesday on my pages. You can find it on YouTube channel. You can find it this week, vendor audits, and wanted to discuss kind of, vendor audit. That sounds kind of overwhelming. What that really means is you're going to go into whatever system it is that you're tracking all of your vendor stuff. So whether you have, I'm going to refer to QuickBooks Online because that is my preference, but if you use FreshBooks or Xero, whatever it is, where you've got your vendor center going on, you want to be taking a look at a few things before you send your stuff into your CPA, just to make sure your information is accurate. You don't have any duplications of stuff or any misapplied payments, so that they can have a clear picture of what went on. So happy Wednesday, Misha. I see you, girl. So what you want to do is you're going to go into that vendor center and you're going to do a couple of things. One, if you have a bill payment at all, but if in QuickBooks, you would do a pay bill situation. If you're on a cash basis and you're not really using accrual, you want to make sure that nothing is in there. Nothing accidentally got to be a bill. You didn't accidentally create some sort of bill payment, really weird. So if you're on a cash basis and you're not running accruals and you pay things that's coming along, just go new, pay bills, make sure that that is clean. There's nothing in there. Then you want to go and do a couple of things. So you want to look at your bank registers and just see if you have anything that hasn't cleared the bank that's old. And if it's like a check or something that you put in there and it's old and it was paid to a vendor and hasn't cleared, that's an indication there might be something wrong. So you want to go into the vendor file, double check that, maybe use the bank feed and it didn't get attached to the expense correctly. So you want to look at that. The other thing you want to look at is if maybe you've got a weird credit, like you go into the vendor and there's a negative amount for some reason. That means that a couple of things. It could mean multiple things. The most common is maybe you got a refund that came in and it hasn't been applied yet. Or maybe you got a refund, it came in and there was another bill that it went to and that bill never got put in the system. So these are things that you want to check. Do you have something sitting in to be paid in your paid bills? You want to get that cleaned up. Do you have a negative amount? If you have a credit and you know it's legit and you're using credits, and that's good. But if you have a negative amount and then you're like, hey, that doesn't make any sense, I don't owe them anything and they don't owe me anything, that's an indication that you don't have paperwork correct or something's not balanced out correctly. The other thing about the vendor audits that we've touched on a couple of times, and I just want to re-review, is you want to look at the information that you have for your vendors. So you might have 150 vendors in your system, and maybe you don't use 150 anymore. take the time to clean them up. Do a quick look through all of your vendors. If you're not doing business with someone anymore, maybe they're not in business, deactivate those people so they don't show up in your records. Make sure that that's all clean. Make sure they have a zero balance before you do that. If they don't, you want to clean all that up. But you want to make sure you clean out any vendors that you're not doing business with anymore, any vendors that have gone out of business. You want to make sure, especially for people that would get a 1099. So last month, lots of people, they go through the pain process of, who do I 1099? I have to 1099. I didn't know I had to 1099. What do you mean I had to 1099, right? Like the whole process of all of it. So you want to make sure that you're starting this process, and we've discussed this in before, that you have all of the information in the system. So you want, do you have their name, but do you also have their address? If they are a 1099 vendor, and we'll discuss that more in detail later, but that you're checking the box to track that they are a 1099 vendor. Yes, the rules are, well, not until you pay them $600, but it's February, and you might be like, hey, I'm only going to use this person one time. It's $150. It's fine. I don't have to 1099 them. And then November comes, and you need them for a big job, and it's $1,000, and you just do the business, you write the check. And then January comes and you're like, oh, shoot, I didn't get a W-9, so I could send a 1099. And without that information on the W-9, you can't send your 1099, right? And you want to be able to deduct that. So without sending a 1099, you're not going to, you don't have the proper deduction to be able to take that off a tax. So you want to be making sure that you're collecting that information ahead of time. Corporations, you don't have to 1099. Now, you've got a couple of different options. You can over collect on the W-9s, just better be safe than sorry. Or you can be very strategic about your naming principles and your thing. So if you know they're incorporated, make a note of that in their vendor file. So at the end of the year, whatever that note is, whatever makes sense to you, if it's in the notes, if it's in the company name, whatever, that come January, I know I don't have to 1099 these people. Another misconception on that with vendors and 1099ing is who you have to 1099. People seem to think, oh, well, it's just a contractor. That's all I need to worry about. It's just a contractor is doing this certain thing. There's other people that apply. If you write a check to someone for rent, maybe for your business, and it's an individual and it's not like a property management company, they get a 1099. They're supposed to. Legal fees, 1099. They're not exempt, whether they're incorporated or not. Even if it's a law firm, doesn't matter if they're incorporated, they get a 1099 over the $600, but they still get one. And people seem to think that, oh, well, they're incorporated, so I don't have to. Well, that's incorrect. So you just want to make sure you have a good understanding of your vendors. And that means tracking the information. So if you're paying for a service, paying for professional services, your landscaping company, if you got someone, maybe you got a janitor who's an individual who comes in and does janitor, all of those things qualify as 1099 expenses. So better to track them and have the information available. And then rather than trying to do it in January, right? It's just too hard. And then trying to track people down to get a W-9, very difficult. Many people don't want to do it. Also encourage people in the vendor system is if you're using QuickBooks Online, they have a really handy feature where you can just get an email address, and then you can send a little portal to the people, and they send their information back. So all of this in your vendor audit is go through. Take the time now. See if you have all the information. If you don't, ask for it now. Send a W-9 out. Be like, hey, hoping to use your services again this year, and I want to make sure that I've got everything on track, so I need you to fill this out for me. It's just smart. And get an email address, because when you go to 1099, if you have an email address, you can use services to file, and you don't have to worry about mailing and getting the right forms and envelopes and stamps and all that crazy stuff. So we'll discuss that again next January. So I just want to get in here and it's tidbits, and it's things that you can do one time. So hopefully last week you guys looked at your customer record, you went through everything I recommended. And this week you're going to go in and you're going to check your vendor files. Clean them up. Is it spelt right? Yeah, just all the good stuff. Have they moved? You need to update that. Everything that you want in there. You should do this regularly. I mean, I would suggest looking at your vendor file a couple of times a year, but at a minimum annually and before you send it. So every year, you put it on your calendar like clockwork. Every January 1st, you're taking a look at everything. But I would highly suggest that, quarterly would be better. Monthly would be awesome. But you want to take care of this and keep it clean, because as you grow, this can get ugly and really out of control. So make sure that you're doing that. And again, so the three quick things you're going to do: check your vendors. If you're in a system like QuickBooks, go, pay bills. And if there's anything in there that isn't, and you've paid, look into it, clean it up. Check your credit cards and your checking account registers. If there's something that's really old that never reconciled out with your statement, check it out. It might be a duplicate. It might be something where you had a bill and the thing never went through and it needs to be voided because you canceled the transaction. So if you don't do these things, you're either over or understating your expenses, right? And we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we have very clean stuff for your CPA. And then go through, deactivate the ones you're not using. Make sure you have the proper information. Get the correct W-9 and check the box so that when you run a report later down the road, you can just run your quick report and know exactly who could be 1099. And if you're not sure, check the box anyway. And then you can clean it up at the end of the year after you talk to your CPA, like, hey, I don't know, or your bookkeeper, I don't know if I'm supposed to 1099 these. If not, then you can remove it, make your notes. So that's where we're at today. Just little tidbits to help get you ready for your CPA, because it is truly tax season. We're just a few short weeks away from it being time. And we want to make sure that you guys are taking these small tidbits, getting your file and work on it, schedule time right now to get in there, clean everything up. And next week we'll talk about reconciliations and how those can be really helpful and really eye-opening for you to catch some mistakes that might be in your books. So I hope that this was helpful for you. If you have any questions whatsoever, just leave them in the comments. If you have a question about and how-to or some sort of something that I'm saying, send me a message, leave it down below, and we will see you next week.